Ghanaians have roundly rejected that because they see that you are lying to them. That's why I posed the question to him that as we sit here today, COVID affected every country in the world. He should show me which countries today are doing the haircuts, apart from Zambia, which did it about 2 years ago. You mismanage your affairs and you are seeking to blame something. And that's why I said that President Akufo-Addo is the worst leader we've had. He doesn't take responsibility for anything. The decisions to spend money beyond your means was taken by President Akufo-Addo, Alhaji Bawumia, and Kedofo Yatta. That is where we are. Look, the biggest problems we have are two. It is a huge and unsustainable public debt, and then a very wide budget deficit. It's when you have a wide deficit, it means that you have to borrow to finance it. That is what has plunged us into this chaos. And the decisions to spend and borrow were made by President Akufo-Addo, Alhaji Bawumia, and Kedofo Yatta, and nobody else. So when the decisions you take wreak such devastating havoc on the citizens, you must take responsibility and stop blaming others. Were we the only country that COVID affected? And why is he saying that the Francophone countries have always had stable inflation? It's because they manage their economies well. Even in the midst of COVID, they didn't have, why? Ghana. Can you compare the deaths recorded in Ghana to what happened in Italy and the US? The US lost about 1 million people. Did the economy collapse? And we are behaving as if we are the only country that COVID affected. COVID affected all our neighbors. Yet they managed to keep their economies within sustainable limits because they had leaders who thought clearly and did not spend beyond our means or their means in order to win elections. You thought that elections were coming and you needed to win at all costs. So you spent beyond what you could afford. That is what has plunged us into this disaster. And you see, the excuses he keeps making. He says that the debt-to-GDP ratio has escalated because of structural economic problems. I can see the structural economic problems, they just, what do you call it, surface from Mars. They just dropped on us when Akufo-Addo became president. When President Mahama was president, there were no structural difficulties. So when the debt-to-GDP ratio was 56%, he deserved to be criticized by Alhaji Bawumia, who was standing on platforms grinning from year to year and poking fun at anybody you could see in government. But when Akufo-Addo becomes problem, suddenly structural problems emerge. So when he takes our debt-to-GDP ratio to 105%, he must be applauded and excused. 56 was bad, but 105% is good. What kind of argument and logic is this? You borrowed, and when you were borrowing, you were cautioned. All the reports, IMF, World Bank show that you borrowed beyond sustainable limits. You were cautioned. Look, President Kufuor's time is not ideal for purposes of comparative analysis. He had debt relief of close to $5 billion. No government has had that. So our debt-to-GDP ratio was always going to drop. It was not through any spectacular effort of his. He just took advantage of a program that existed, which was HIPIC. At the end of HIPIC, we were forgiven about $5 billion of our debt. So it didn't exist anymore on our books. It's not like President Kufuor found money to pay off the debt we owed. But when a responsible government took over, we know that your debt must be held within a certain threshold in order for you to have sustainability and fiscal space to operate. We too could have gone on and borrowed to the tune of 600 billion. But we left with a debt of 120 billion. And I go say, we all recall what you said. It is in this your manifesto which you have here. We all recall how you criticized the previous governments. Our borrowing was so within sustainable limits.
No, it's not true.
Oh, what is not true? So the figures show. I beg you. The figures show. Please, the figures show. Why? You are going to go to IMF.
But you went there.
No, you didn't go there. No, you have not gone there. So what are you talking about? You see, again, pure propaganda. We had gone to the IMF 15 times before President Mahama became president. He goes to the IMF and Bawumia is all over the place making fun of him. Today, he has reached for the nearest rat hole. He has run away again. I'm sure in the next few weeks he will emerge to make more ridiculous statements and make himself the subject of international ridicule as he was last week compared to Magua. We went to the IMF. And because of that, we are the devils himself. But as for you, when you go to IMF, you are angel. What kind of logic is this? Your IMF, why? You've gone to IMF in an ambulance. You can't even walk. Because of how bad the economy is, the IMF is asking you to come and do haircuts before you qualify. When you went to the IMF, did you do any haircuts? Were we asked to do any haircuts at the IMF? So if you want to see how bad you've been, look at the conditionalities that are being imposed on you. Another one that they used to make noise about was net fees. Which was actually imposed by Banri in 2007. Today, they have done a freeze in the public sector. What are they going to say about that? You see how time and fate has exposed them. as hollow braggers. You brag. You know nothing about economic management. You mess up an economy this way and then you continue to make excuses. He claims that we grew by 14.4% in 2011 because of oil. That is true. But you recall that in my earlier submission, I gave you a tall list of GDP figures over the years. In 2010, there was no oil production. We grew by 8% without oil. Even in 2014, half of that growth of 14% was within the non-oil sector. In 12, we grew by above 9.2%, which is higher than the highest they have recorded. I was in any event. They took over in 2017. Their first budget was already in March. The economic policies did not kick in until September. Yet 3 months down the line, we grew by 8.1%. You inherited 2 additional oil fields. And if you check the figures, you see that there was a jump in oil production, oil growth, by about 80%. That is what gave you that 8.1%. After that, you have declined to 0.4, which is the worst in the history of the Fourth Republic. So when you make noise about economic growth, like I told you, it is a joke. If you do a comparison, over the 8-year period of the NDC, if you do an average analysis of growth, it's about 6%. Yours is around 4%. How do you even compare yourself, even on the isolated issue of growth? But he conveniently avoids all the other indicators because they are terrible. The very worst we have had under the Fourth Republic. Today he's comparing inflation to figures in 2001. Look at that. 21 years ago, our inflation level has worsened. And now we compare it to 21 years ago. And you still maintain that you've managed the economy well. When you manage the economy well, are these the outcomes that you get? When you manage the economy well, does your currency drop by 54% in 10 months? When you manage the economy well, do you have a debt to GDP ratio of 105%? When your economy is well managed, does your debt grow from 120 billion to 500 billion within the space of 5 months?
They cite the reason of shocks.
What shocks? No, he has read to you extracts from a speech of President Mahama citing shocks. Why? Don't we use oil revenue in the calculation of GDP as well, together with other factors? So when you have had 20 billion Ghana cedis in oil revenue over 6 years, and somebody has less than a quarter of that, are you not in a better position to do better than that person? But you have done worse than him, and you still sit here and say that you were better. How are you better? So when I speak about disrespecting people, that is what I mean. Look, he again says that, they have added 45 megawatts of. You see, I will list for you a number of things. We brought Car Power, AXA, Amandi, Sunona Sogli, second phase, same power. When you add this, you are talking close to 1,000 megawatts. 1,000 megawatts. He mentions 45 megawatts. The other one he mentioned are transmission lines. There's no generation capacity. So I won't even touch on it. But you see, what he doesn't know is that as we speak, they owe, as of September 2022, they owe Car Power $165 million. They owe AXA Power $155 million. They owe Amandi $180 million. They owe Sunona Sogli $135 million. They owe Sen Power $160 million. They owe BXC $8 million. They owe Minergy, which is on the Winneba Road, $3.8 million. They owe Senate $120 million. When you add it, this is $1 billion in debt, or about 15 billion Ghana cedis as of September. It is just that the companies have been magnanimous with you. They don't want to compound the terrible suffering we are going through by turning off their power plants. So what did Akufo-Addo really do to ensure? And I have mentioned to you Ghana Gas. Because of the gas we get there, we don't cough out $300 million to import fuel to fire the power plant. So what did Akufo-Addo really do? So you know nothing about the stability in power we are enjoying. You have, if it was left to you, you would have mismanaged it. Even the little that was handed over to you, see how you've mismanaged it and plunged us into the darkest moments in our economic history in recent times. And you still maintain that people should have patience for you. You, the very party that has destroyed the economy, brought us to our knees, and created a situation where we are compared to Sri Lanka, the worst managed economy in the world, say that people should have confidence in you. But when you were in opposition, the party that did not bring us anywhere near the terrible situation we are in, you said people should not have confidence in them. Because why? He's called Akufo-Addo. So as for him, he's more human. But when somebody is called Mahama, even if he does better, he should not have sympathy. Really? Is that how you disrespect the people of Ghana? Indeed, in other countries, they've chased their governments away for performance that doesn't come anywhere near to your disastrous output. Now, let me come to the haircuts. Right. You see, again, I speak about respect. I was about a month ago, if I'm not mistaken. The president did an address. And the president was explicit. I will challenge you to play it if you have it. His words were clear. They were unambiguous. He said there will be no haircuts. Is that not what the president said?
Yeah, he did.
Then on Monday,
what they have issued is still that there is no.
How is that? You see, I speak about this respect. Look, Akwesi, when somebody gives you money, lends you money, and you have an agreement that every year you will pay me 30% in interest, up until when the loan, the money I lend you reaches maturity. When it matures, you will give me my money in a lump sum. On Monday, the Minister of Finance announces that for bonds maturing from 1st December this year, they have extended the tenor and replaced it with 4 new bonds that start from 2027.
If you don't mind,
sure,
I'll play the video.
The president's video, great.
Yes, so and I will calculate the time.
No problem. No, don't worry.
So what the president said, I don't know if we still have the finance minister's own, because I'll engage him on this one. So let's have it.
%30 cut in budgeted discretionary expenditure and a 30% cut in salaries of the president, vice president, ministers, deputy ministers, MMDCs, and political office holders, amongst other measures. And since July, when the government took the difficult decision to go to the IMF to seek support, I've been speaking publicly at different fora on the subject of the economic difficulties we face, especially during my recent tours, so far, of 9 regions. In April, after the cabinet retreat of the first quarter, and recognizing the deteriorating macroeconomy, my government announced a 30% cut in budgeted discretionary expenditure and a 30% cut in salaries of the president, vice president, ministers, deputy ministers, MMDCs, and political office holders, amongst other measures. And since July, when the government took the difficult decision to go to the IMF to seek support, I've been speaking publicly at different fora on the subject of the economic difficulties we face, especially during my recent tours, so far, of 9 regions, and interacting directly with you, the Ghanaian people. It is also true that many of you have felt the need for me to come back to the fellow Ghanaians format that brings us all together. For us in Ghana, our reality is that our economy is in great difficulty. The budget drawn for the 2022 fiscal year, that is this year, has been thrown out of gear, disrupting our balance of payments and debt sustainability, and further exposing the structural weaknesses of our economy. We are in a crisis. Do not exaggerate when I say so. I cannot find an example in history when so many malevolent forces have come together at the same time. But, as we have shown in other circumstances, we should turn this crisis into an opportunity to resolve not just the short-term urgent problems, but the long-term structural problems that continue to bedevil our economy. I also want to assure all Ghanaians that no individual or institutional investor, including pension funds, in government treasury bills or instruments, will lose their money as a result of our ongoing IMF negotiations. There will be no haircuts. So I urge all of you to ignore the false rumors. Just as in the banking sector cleanup, government ensured that the 4.6 million depositors affected by the exercise did not lose their deposits.
Good evening, Ghanaians. In the budget statement presented to Parliament on November 24th, I announced the government will undertake a debt operation program. The broad contours of the debt sustainability analysis has been concluded, and I'm here this evening to provide some details on Ghana's domestic debt exchange, which will be launched tomorrow. External debt restructuring parameters will be presented in due course. Under the domestic exchange program, domestic bond holders will be asked to exchange their instruments for new ones. Existing domestic bonds as of 1st December 2022 will be exchanged for a set of 4 new bonds maturing in 2027, 2029, 2032, and 2037. The annual coupon on all these new bonds will be set at 0% in 2023, 5% in 2024, and 10% from 2025 until maturity. Coupon payments will be semi-annual. Our commitment to Ghanaians and the investor community, in line with negotiations with the IMF, is to restore macroeconomic stability in the shortest possible time and enable investors to realize the benefits of this debt exchange. The government of Ghana has been working hard to minimize the impact.
Well, so I think what we've seen already makes enough sense.
So,
the president
so what's explicit?
Explicit.
But you see, what is a haircut? Like I was saying, you lend government money. Dr. Nyako is a government. You have some money that you've set aside after years of work. And you decide that you have options to invest. You decide, okay, I'll give it to government because the conventional wisdom suggests that investments in government are safe because countries don't just disappear off the face of the earth. So whatever it is, you will get your money. So you invest with government. Then he tells you that in semi-annual payments, I will give you interest of say 30% or 20% based on what you agree with them. And then when your investment matures in 5 years, I will pay you your money, lump sum. So you give him 100,000 Ghana cedis, 30% interest paid over 2 installments in a year, 6 monthly installments. And then the lump sum. You expect this. They mismanage the economy and tell you that they have to go to the IMF. But if they don't go to if they do not ensure that our debt is below sustainable limits, now it is 105%. The IMF says they must bring it to 55% in 5 years. That means that they have to get a pass of about 200 billion Ghana cedis from creditors. They have to take 200 billion Ghana cedis from creditors in order to bring it to 55% in 5 years. Domestic contribution to this alone is 137 billion. So domestic lenders to government have to give government 137 billion Ghana cedis before they can reach the 55% threshold that qualifies them for an IMF program. So instead of the agreed 30%, first of all, your bonds from 1st December, I have unilaterally replaced them with 4, maturing in 2027, 2029, 2032, and 2035. So between 5 to 15 years. So if your bond was supposed to mature this year, or anytime between now and the 15 years, you won't get it until I determine that this is the ideal situation for you. And then on top of that, the 30% that I promised you, I won't give you out. Next year, you won't get anything, 0. And that's about 30 billion Ghana cedis. I will give you 0. And I will say, you have planned your life and expenditure around this. You have children that you have to take care of. You have the household to cater for. You have dependents, your elderly parents.
There are people going on pension.
There are people going on pension. So you have planned your life for that 2023. And given how inflation has gone up, the cost of living has gone through the roof. Daily increases in the price of goods and services. You have planned your life around this 2023's interest that you expect from government. And government tells you, I will give you 0. I won't give you anything. The next year, 2024, I'll give you 5%. And then in 2025, I'll give you 10%. And you tell her that it is not a haircut. Akwesi, are the NPP respecting the people of Ghana? This is a haircut. You have shaved off money that is due investors by significant margins. As for next year, they can't look forward to anything. Zero. They will get zero. Nothing. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. On top of that, even when the bond matures, they won't pay you in a lump sum. Aguzi, in 2027, they will pay 17% of the amount that has matured. In 2029, they will pay another 17%. In 2032, they will pay 25%. And then in 2037, they will pay 41%. So when you add it up, you get 100%. And you are telling me that it is not a haircut. It is a crude, an exceptionally crude haircut. It is, you know, when we were children, there was this black comb that they will put the blade behind and use it to shave your head.
Yeah.
In fact, what people are getting now is comparable to being shaved with a broken bottle. So they have taken your interest. For the whole of next year, you will get nothing.
Broken bottle.
Broken bottle, yes. So if you were looking forward to get anything next year to live your life, you will get nothing. 5% the next year, 10% the following year. And then when the thing matures, it will be spread over a 15-year period. Mind you, the value of the money would have depreciated. And domestic bonds, they are held in local currency, not foreign currency. Local currency. Actually, the other issue is that even though the minister was terse and said that they will discuss external bonds later, look, it is a well-kept secret in this country that for external bondholders, they will get a haircut of 30% for both principal and interest. And you see, many people, when they hear about external bonds, they assume that it is some foreigners or non-resident Ghanaians who hold it. No, actually, they are Ghanaians who, through investment firms, have purchased external bonds. You see, the Dachi bonds, which was issued in the name of Get Fund, the energy bonds, they were foreign bonds. They are Ghanaian banks and financial institutions that have invested in that on behalf of their clients. So Ghanaians will also be affected by the haircuts that will be announced soon by government. And you see, because of that, we have been classified as having defaulted. So yesterday or the day before, Standard & Poor's put out the latest rating.
Rating, yeah, rating.
It's a selective default because we have defaulted on our domestic debt. It is only a matter of time before we announce publicly that we have defaulted on the external one. Right. He claims that they have done better than us.
Anyway.
I mean, inexplicable.
Anyway.
But ask him, how can you tell me that a government that leads us into default, which has not happened since 1982, 40 years, it has never happened. They've done better than us.